Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to life on the North Fork of Long Island. Some are rooted here by generations, others arrived by chance or choice, but all carry with them a piece of the story. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 199, we sit down with Jim Morrison, filmmaker and theater manager at the North Fork Arts Center. Jim spent his early years in different parts of Long Island before settling in Greenport as a teenager, experiences that shaped his outlook long before he eventually moved to New York City to study film and develop his skills. After more than 2 decades working in on-air operations at Showtime and Paramount, where he gained a deep understanding of how television works behind the scenes, Jim began creating his own films within the last several years. His projects, including The Clam Kid, Rent a Neighbor, Kyle vs. Karen, and Harry Hellfire, allow him to showcase his humor, creativity, and the influence of the communities he's called home. In 2023, he launched the Greenport Film Music Festival, building a new community-centered celebration of film and music. Now, as theater manager of the historic Greenport Theatre, he is helping shape the vision of the North Fork Arts Center with programming that brings films, performances, and workshops to audiences across the region. In our conversation, we talk about his path from Long Island to New York City and back, his turn towards filmmaking, his work behind the scenes in television, and his hopes for the future of the arts on the North Fork. So I hope you enjoy episode 199 with Jim Morrison. This episode was recorded July 30th, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. I'm really looking forward to talking to you today.
Likewise. Thank you.
Definitely. And so just in the beginning, I'd like to start if you can give us a little introduction about yourself, how far back or where you were born and raised.
Well, I wasn't born and raised in Greenport. I kind of slowly migrated. Our family slowly migrated out east here, and I was born in North Shore Hospital in Manhasset, and I was raised in the town of Roslyn in the early 70s. And my parents tended to move a lot. We would live in a house for a year, and all of a sudden the lease would be up, and we moved to the next town. Mm-hmm. So we moved to Locust Valley, and then to Medford, and then eventually to Greenport in the mid '80s.
Mm. And what brought your family out here?
Well, the easiest way to say it, my step-grandmother lived out here, and we would visit her around Christmas time. I would spend, like a week in the summer out here, at an early age. She actually worked here in the library, Hope Olson. Oh. So, and, I used to come here as a kid, actually, in this, I believe, this very basement, if I remember correctly.
Yes, right.
So she always held events when we'd come out in the summer, and I remember coming here a lot as a very young kid. So it was just, I don't think my parents were thinking, all right, let's move to a new school district. And we're, that whole, going into the classroom and the introduction, hey, class, we have a new kid. That's a real thing. And we've experienced that a lot. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we eventually settled in Greenport, and the whole moving every other year just stopped.
And how old were you when you came out?
I was 14 when we lived out here permanently.
Okay. And what did your parents do for work?
My dad did auto body repair, and my stepmother, she, did odd jobs here and there. So, he would go, that's kind of a reason why we moved a lot. It was, better situations, better paying jobs, cheaper rents. And I clearly remember it was very inexpensive to live here.
In the 80s?
Yeah, like 1984. I just remember, for some reason, I don't know, I was always aware of what my parents were making, what they were, what they were paying in rents. But I was like, oh, this place is great. And I thought it was really cool because I liked working and I liked making money. And I came to visit one time, and it was like, I ended up dishwashing downtown. And I was like, even though I don't like dishwashing, I was like making money. And I thought, this place is great. It's cheap to live here. It's,
Yeah. And were you, even as a teenage boy, were you reluctant to come out here, or were you happy to come out here and start, because it was more getting into high school then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about that because, I hated the whole up in front of the class, we got a new student, but you're a kid, you're going through it.
Hmm.
I feel like when we moved to Greenport, it was more like, all right, yeah, let's do this, let's go. It was just
Yeah.
so used to it at that point. It was just like, yeah, okay, yeah. The odd thing is when we moved to a new town, I always had to I was kind of longing for the past town, so,
Mm.
we were in the Patchogue Medford area before Greenport. I was like, when I get older, I'm going to move back to Patchogue, which never happened.
Mm.
And, I found more of a love for Greenport, and, this is where I'm rooted right now.
Yes. And could you talk about just your time as a teenager in Greenport and even what activities you might do for fun outside of school on the weekend in the area at that time? Was Greenport, was it, because people would talk about Greenport in the 80s and that it weren't as many shops?
No. And, that was the great thing is that in the summertime you were working, but come winter, it was everything shut down completely. There was no jobs. There was just nothing. I mean, for kids, you'd either have to go out of town to work, but I just remember being, as I said, I like to work since I was a young kid and just being broke in the wintertime.
And was the theater open at that time?
No, they were closed. It was
They were
just
closed.
closed down for winter,
Mm.
with the big sign up there says closed for the winter and then just in the summertime.
And then Mitchell Park was just kind of empty.
It was.
It wasn't Mitchell
Yeah,
Park.
you used to see Mitchell's building. I have old video of it too, of us hanging out in there in the mid '80s, and there was an old building. I believe it was a restaurant, and then there was an old remnants of a foundation. So you would actually see tile. You would actually see where the bathroom was, and that was there for years before, right at the front of the park.
Yeah.
That was there. And then if you walked in the back, there was these really cool areas that you can kind of hang out and, hang out by the beach and be unseen.
And then also, could you talk about your time in school through Greenport High School and what you were interested in subject-wise, and were you interested in the arts at that time?
So I'm going to go back just a little bit. When I came to Greenport School, it made my head spin a little bit because it was so tiny and it's so old in there. I don't know if you've been in there, but it has the old woodwork around the blackboards. You ever see the movie The Christmas Story?
Yes.
Those classrooms always remind me the Greenport classrooms, and that woodwork still exists. And a lot of in the library there, they still have the old custom woodwork and the old cubbies downstairs. So it was, coming from a modern school in Patchogue with hundreds and hundreds of kids to going into a classroom of 10 kids, it was really weird, Can't say I didn't like it, but it was a little different for me. But, I was an okay student, and it depended on what class I was interested in. I always did good in the arts. I always did good in history, but the math, and it just depended what my interests were. So I think if I really, really strived to be, I could have been a very good student. But I was just, for some other classes, just passing.
Were there any teachers that you, that were mentors at that time, or that you enjoyed their classes at all?
I mean, I liked the teachers there, but as mentor, probably not. I mean, I remember there was a video composition class that I was just trying to get into, and I ended up making a horrible project. It was basically a book report on Led Zeppelin was my video project. I wish I could say I made this epic film of some sort, but I didn't, know.
But you were, like you said, with Mitchell Park, you were filming in high school.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That would be with the school camera too, because back then nobody had cameras, and they were so expensive. I mean, they were probably $1,200, which is a lot of money, especially for 1984. So the school would actually loan you out the camera. You say, I'm doing a project, and I think we spent more time just walking around town doing the man on the street. And I feel like a lot of people would do that back in those days because nobody was used to holding a camera and walking around with here we are, and acting like jerks. There's a lot of videos of us going through IGA. Hey, this is some kind of product. We're trying to be funny. Everybody tries to be funny all the time on camera. And it's just you're not being funny. You're being annoying. So yeah, we have a ton of videos of us going through the old IGA where the Shelley's Market is. IGA now used to be A&P, and us going through the A&P as well.
Okay.
Going into stores, and we weren't harassing anybody. But we were just, I don't know, kind of being jerks.
And then you think I'm trying to think if students would do that today, or if you could do that today in IGA. Probably not.
Probably not, because they wouldn't care to, because they constantly, you have a camera in your pocket at all
Yes,
times. So
that's
there's
true.
no appeal to us. We were just like a kid in a candy store, like, oh, we got a camera. And
Yes.
people would always say, is that thing taking pictures? So it's a real primitive thing about it, like cavemen discovering fire type feel,
Yeah. And then coming out of high school, did you know what you wanted to do for a career?
Sort of. I was just so happy to get out of high school, and I just wanted to make money. And I went and I worked on Shelter Island. I was like, I can't understand why anybody would want to go to college, and then all of a sudden, like a year or two in, I'm like, all right, I can't be doing this. I was house painting over there, and I was making really good money, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to do something else. And I've always enjoyed film and filmmaking. My dad, I grew up with a typical, family with a Super 8 camera. My dad showing us the films, and he was very creative himself. And, I've always showed an interest in that. And I didn't know which direction I wanted to go into. I kind of wanted to get into acting, and I did for a little bit. I actually was in I think 91, I was in a public service announcement. Okay. And I can't find it anywhere. And I had long hair, and they wanted a metalhead character, and it's a Don't Talk to Strangers video. And I had to go to New York City to shoot it, and I had to stand with this other metalhead guy. And they're saying, all right, these kids are skipping by, and you're watching them as they go by. And that was it. I got paid $50. And I think it was months and months later, a lot of my friends said that they actually saw me on the PSA. And it took a long time for me to see it. I actually saw it when I was living in California. I actually finally got a chance to see it. So it was nationwide. It's just I haven't seen it since. So anyways, so I kind of wanted to get into acting, but I started making a lot of, I was into sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live type stuff. And I started shooting these programs, weird sketch comedy things that I did around Greenport. And my goal was to get it on public access. I was shooting high, So, so I made these, I have an hour and a half of sketch comedy footage, not great sketch comedy footage, but I have it, of just me and my friends doing silly sketches. So I kind of got the bug for writing and acting. And then I think that the acting part slowly dissipated, and I really wanted to do more into the production. And I just started looking into schools, and I ended up going to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan and taking the filmmaking classes there.
What was that? Because eventually you went out to California, but was that after the School of the Visual Arts? Yeah,
I have a weird path. So no, that was before.
That was before.
Yeah, before. A friend of mine was living out there in Hollywood, and this was the winter, and he was always saying, "Hey, come on out." And I was like, "All right, I'm coming out." And I lived out there for maybe 3 months, and I didn't really do much. Not much at all. Just, I did do comedy. I did an amateur night at the Laugh Factory. And it was something you, if you showed up on Tuesday, the first 10 people in line, you can go on stage at the end. So you're sitting in there, and you had to buy a drink. And there's all these known comedians coming in at the time. I remember there's Rick Aviles, Mario Joyner came in. It was they were coming in down from the hills to do they always got to go up on stage and test out their writing material while you're sitting off in the wings. And by the time any of us got up there was literally 5 people, in the audience. And I got a few laughs, but to say how I did, I couldn't, because, there was 5, it was like talking to 5 of your friends,
Yeah. But just thinking of Greenport at the time, were you wanting to get out of Greenport and explore?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I wasn't dying to get out of Greenport. I was just dying to do something. I really wanted to be somewhere where there's production, where, I'm able to be among people, creative people, and work on projects. And in a way, I feel like I kind of had to discover that myself. I never had a mentor of any sort, and I always feel like I wish I had something like that.
Mm-hmm. And so you were in New York City. Was that in the 90s that you were?
Yeah, that was in the early 90s. And it was just kind of funny, I kind of remember feeling a little bit of culture shock, felt like a country boy moving to the big city, There was totally that feel of it, because I had my life here. I had a really, I had a lot of friends, very social. And then all of a sudden I go to the big city, and I'm like, oh, I'm just by myself here. So, I got over that pretty quickly and kind of found my way.
And was New York City at that time, was it interesting for you, and then getting getting to film or do film projects in the city at that time? Just even looking at New York City from then to now.
As for projects, I think I went the typical route that a lot of first-year film students went, making films about... I made a film about being homeless and just me, but there was more to the story than that. And I feel like a lot of students do that. And I kind of fell into that trope, I guess.
Yeah. And what do you think drew you to film and wanting to study that?
I just think it was a slow progression. It's just something maybe you can't explain or I can't explain. Again, going back to my father shooting films and the films that I was inspired by. I mean, I was inspired by one film that really stuck out for me was Raising Arizona by the Coen brothers. And when I saw that film, I felt like it spoke to me because it was so weird. All these like quick shots and going up, close-ups of people's faces, this lone biker of the apocalypse throwing hand grenades at rabbits. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I love this and I want to be a part of something like this. So, it's just a slow progression of things that influenced me. And I think going into the 90s, for me, I think for a lot of people was an amazing era for independent filmmaking. There was the early Tarantino movies, the Kevin Smith movies. It was just amazing films coming out at that time. And I just wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to create stuff like that.
And graduating from SVA, where were you wanting to head from there?
Well, I did a number of internships. I worked at like MTV. I used to work on a comedy show called The State. You probably see a lot of the characters. They're on a show like Reno 9/11 now. They've all kind of ventured off and done had very successful careers. But I didn't, I did a lot of production work on and off, nothing steady. And I got married and had a kid, and that, life takes a different turn at that point. I was living in Groton, Connecticut for 5 years and, raised 2 kids, married, kind of living the married life. Still doing production work here and there. Sometimes there was stuff shot in Connecticut through the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, and occasionally I get on a production like that. I've always wanted to shoot my own film, but at that time you couldn't. You had to have tens and thousands of dollars, and I wasn't going to do the Kevin Smith, put everything on a credit card, sell my stuff, and we couldn't do that. We were trying to get money to get a car, so it was like, I just couldn't go that route. So money really held me back from wanting to actually shooting a film. Creatively, I stuck with it though. I continued to write and hope that I could do a project of some sort. But it was a long stretch. We lived in Connecticut for 5 years. So it was a long stretch, big gap.
And you also worked over 20 years working on air operations at Showtime and Paramount.
Yeah. So when I lived in Connecticut, I took a full-time job in on-air operations at a TV station called PAX. I don't know if you remember that. They were, it was like family program, but yet they would show like, Bonanza where people were getting shot and drinking, which didn't bother me, but it was funny. That was kind of like their thing. We're family programming. We can't show this, that. I'm like, yeah, but you got to see what's on Bonanza here. So I learned on-air operations, which I never even knew what kind of job this was. You're on air, you're responsible for what goes out, what gets uplinked to the people. So if you hit a button, somebody at home is going to see that. You key in a graphic or you knock yourself off air, somebody's going to see that. So I got a couple of years of experience doing that. And then when my wife got she was stationed over in Groton, Connecticut. She worked. She was in the Navy, and when her term was up, we moved back to Greenport. And so I was like trying to figure out, where am I going to find work? And I saw that there was a listing an MTV listing in Hop Hog. And I contacted one of my friends. I was like, where is there an MTV facility in Hop Hog? And he's like, oh, their National Operating Center is right there. And I'm like, what? So I applied. I got the job there and kind of been there for 24 years.
Wow. And what year did you move back to Greenport?
What year? I think it was 2000. 2000. Yeah, I believe it was 2000. 2001, I think.
And what did you think of, I'm curious, with MTV and that whole era of production and a different style of more fast-paced, short filmmaking style. Obviously, it's not in operation today.
No, and I think, I thought MTV was the coolest channel when I was there. They had the greatest, programming there, the short films, the liquid television, the weird little bumpers in between videos, actual videos, and they don't do a lot of that anymore. I don't know what it is, anymore. And it's kind of sad because it was a cool channel.
And working with MTV and Showtime and Paramount, what was one of your favorite projects you've worked on?
I mean, I'd go back when I was interning and production assistants on the state, because I was into sketch comedy. And here I am on a sketch comedy show, seeing it on a high level, seeing it shot in Kaufman Astoria Studios and, going on these location shoots and seeing this being done. I absolutely love it. And if you go back, you actually see me in a couple of sketches too, very briefly. I'd have to point it out to you. So
yeah. And then so you were back in Greenport, and were you doing any more independent filmmaking that you wanted to do some of your own projects? Because I wanted to bring up Harry Hellfire.
Yes.
But that was that 2012?
2012, but it took I believe 4 years to make it. And we're going back to where I saw, I said that, you needed money in order to create a project. There was a camera from Panasonic that came out called the DVX 100. And it was a big deal when it came out because it kind of kickstarted a lot of filmmakers to go out. You can make your own movie now because it looked like film quality. I mean, you look at it now, you'd be like, what are you talking about? But back then it shot in 24p and it looked like a documentary, and, you could edit it in your own home. You couldn't, when I was in Connecticut, you really couldn't do that. It made it so much easier. I was like, oh my God, I could actually do this. And I always had a project. The Harry Hellfire project was a friend of mine that I grew up with in Greenport. We grew up, his name is Guy, Harry. And he's a kid I grew up with. He's same age as me. And we have, a lot of the movie is a lot of old footage from the 80s of us hanging at his house during the metal era. And he was this fantastic guitar player. He still is today. And I pieced together, at the time, it was 20 plus years of old VHS footage, new footage of me, him following around, following a story for a good number of years. And it's basically a collection of that. I shot all that, and I basically had to find a story within what I shot. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and even just getting that film out and getting people to see that, how was that process?
It's funny, I just told this story recently because, I submit to a lot of film festivals with my current projects, and anybody who does that knows it's mostly rejection you get. You'll see me on Facebook, hey, we got into this festival, and I'm like, yeah, you're not seeing the 90 rejections that I got on that, and that's normal,
Yeah.
So with the Harry Hellfire one, I was so new to submitting to film festivals. It was always Sundance, and I submitted, never heard back, and I had one submission was my first submission. It was the Hamptons Take Two Film Festival. And I contacted the head of the festival, Jackie LaFaro, and hey, are you guys accepting films? Because I think their deadline had passed. She's like, if you can get it on my porch by tomorrow, we'll consider it. I'm like, so I hopped the ferry, drove to her house, literally put it on her porch somewhere in the Hamptons. I can't remember where she lives. I hear back 2 months later hearing that we got accepted. And I was like, oh my God, this is the first festival I ever submitted to. This is going to be easy, which no, it's not. So we had a great viewing at the Bay Street Theatre in Sag Harbor. We had an unbelievable turnout, and it was so cool.
And you already had submitted to a lot of film festivals even before this film.
No. Harry Hellfire was the first film that I ever got into a film festival.
But for your other short films before
that's
that?
After. That's as of the last 5 years, actually. That's where I kind of switched over from documentary to actual scripted, which is what I originally liked.
Okay. But thinking about how I think you've touched on even technology, and just for people submitting film festivals and doing films today, it's so much easier to just film and shoot and submit to a bunch of than having to send or mail out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it is so much easier even to shoot it now. And it's because, that's the thing. It's great that we can do that, but now so many people are doing it, and it's so competitive now. And it's unbelievably competitive, and it gets more every year. Mm-hmm. So it's getting harder to get into these festivals.
Do you think it's because people would say even in other forms of art that it's sometimes who you know at these film festivals, or it just depends on the jury or who's in charge of the committee that year and what their interest is?
It has I just had this exact conversation with somebody, and you take a film like Harry Hellfire, it's all about like being a metalhead in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And one of the people on the staff who did view my film was an old metalhead from the 80s, and this guy, Matt, and he connected to it. So I was lucky to get a guy like him to be the viewer on my film. Mm-hmm. I did a film called Rent a Neighbor, and it's about, it's kind of about, Airbnbs, and there's this character, and he's an older guy, and he's like kind of like a curmudgeon. But I feel like if I've gotten a younger kid viewing my film, which a lot of film festivals do, they would be like, this guy kind of reminds me of my dad, like pass. So it really does depend on who you get. And and it doesn't hurt to reach out to film festivals of people. I know a lot of people who run film festivals, but that doesn't guarantee you an in of any sort. They may be going in a different direction, and you just, it hurts when you get the rejection letter, and it's just like, oh, forget them, I'm never going to submit. And then you just got to get over yourself. And it's just, it doesn't mean you made a bad film. It's just, that's just not the direction that they're going into.
Yes. And you mentioned Rent a Neighbor, but you also have a short film like The Clam Kid and Kyle versus Karen. What were these ideas that you were coming up with more within the last, was that in the last 6 years?
Like 5 years. Since 2019, I made 4 short films. There's one more, newer one called I Appreciate Your Concern.
Okay.
So I wrote a script called Tumbleweed Tuesday. It's about the day after Labor Day in a town like this. And it's kind of fun when you write a script, you feel completed. You're like, oh, I wrote a script. And like, everybody's like, yeah, that's nice. So I was kind of sitting around, and I was telling people about the idea, and, nobody's really that interested. So I'm like, all right, I can't just have this thing sit around. So I kind of like took a chapter off of it. I'm like, maybe I can make a short film about maybe the beginning or something like that. And that's what ended up being The Clam Kid. The Clam Kid is sort of the first 15 minutes of the movie, or 12 minutes, I'm sorry. Did great in the film festivals, played worldwide. And then I decided to pull off another piece, which was Rent a Neighbor. It came from the same story, but done a little differently. Like The Clam Kid is more of like a family drama. Rent a Neighbor is more like a wacky comedy. And then this last one, I Appreciate Your Concern, is sort of from the same story as well. I mean, and you put the 3 side by side, you don't really see the resemblance, and you'd kind of be like, well, how are they all related? And they are. They just have to be done more like a standalone story and done a little differently.
And it seems like Greenport has influenced your ideas, and it seems like there's some linkage with these films to even a town or village like here.
Well, I mean, for me, I feel like, and this is not just me, this is said for a lot of things, write from what you know. And I know this town, and when I'm writing something, I already have a place visualized in my head, or some place I hung out when I was a kid, and it really helps the writing process. And also, we live in a cool place. And I think having that as the backdrop and how we live our lives here really fits in well, makes the writing a lot easier.
And also in 2023, you launched the Greenport Film and Music Festival. How did that get started?
So I was sitting in Aldo's, and I saw Poppy and Lisa Richland, who they used to work here. And they were always asking me when they were like, hey, are you going to show The Clam Kid? I'm like, and we were looking at the park, Mitchell Park. I was like, well, it'd be cool if we showed it here. And Lisa's like, well, I'm on the board for the Friends of Mitchell Park. If you want to get something like that going, go ahead. I was like, really? Somebody supporting me on this? So they were so awesome with, they were fully behind me on this. And it's just an excuse to show my films. But, honestly, I'm not all about, you got to see my films. So I really wanted to incorporate other films. And my friend Rosario Rodriguez, who you've had on your show, she made this fantastic documentary, En Mi Camino. I had asked her if she wants to show her film. And she was totally on board with it. So we had, two Greenport filmmakers. And then I kind of reached out to two other people. And there was Brand Dougherty Johnson, which is Poppy's son. Mm-hmm. He's an animator. I asked, hey, Brand, do you want to... I mean, actually, she reached out to me. I'm getting that wrong. And I actually emailed him and said, hey, talk to your mom. Do you want to submit something? He submitted a short film. And then I reached out to my friend Terry Keefe, who was a producer on this film called 18 and a Half by Dan Mervish. Mm-hmm. That was shot here in Greenport over at Silver Sands. And he and Dan agreed to show maybe the first 15 minutes. So it was sort of a film festival of Greenport alumni, which kind of happened organically in a weird way.
Yes.
I thought that was just so cool. I was like, this is awesome. It's just Green, and there was other people in Greenport who made films, but it was just, this is all we could fit at the time. And it's just weird how the way it happened. I was like, this is so, so cool. So we had the festival in the park, and it was June, and it was ice cold out, and it was windy, and our screen was a blow-up screen. So we had to move it. I mean, it almost didn't happen. We almost had to cancel it. And then I talked to Aldo when he was there, and he allowed me to put it up against his building with the big, we had a big blow-up screen. My friend lent me this. Mm-hmm. And we tied it down, and it's blowing all over the place. And in the middle of the festival, I'm literally behind her with my sister, like holding this thing down. And people are in blankets because it was so cold. Huh. But it went great. It was great. And, there was plans to maybe do it the next year. And, I was people were reaching out to me like, hey, I have a project. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I kind of wanted to make a North Fork edition like the next year. But my life situation changed tremendously. This is where I was still working at Showtime. And I ended up getting a part-time management job with the North Fork Arts Center. Mm-hmm. So I was literally working every single day since last year. And I had no time. There was no way to have any time to actually try and get this going. Is it dead? I don't think so, but I just don't know where I am with it right now. Mm-hmm.
But you did get a good response from that year of doing it in 2023.
Yeah, no, we did. It was great. I loved it, and I did when we first did it. I wanted to do it every year, but I didn't expect my life was going to take the turn it did, I guess.
And how did that come about? The North Fork Arts Center. Were you approached by Tony, or how did that situation come about? And were you seeing that there were some possibilities of the theater Saipan and getting that up and running again?
Well, I've always been aware of the MFI, the Manhattan Film Project.
Yes.
Institute. That they had, that Tony and Shannon and Liz were running, and I was actually even in one of their film festivals, and I used to submit every year to their screenwriting contests that they had. So I was aware of them. I was a fan of them for sure. Mm-hmm. And then when I heard that the same people were actually going to be taking over the theater to, start a cultural arts center, I'm like, I want in on this, because I love stuff like that. My wife and I, we go to a lot of film festivals outside of my own. We go to talkbacks, film talkbacks. We go to special events, either on the South Side or Stony Brook or the city. So this coming to our town, this was just unbelievable. And, the whole thing of arts education, filmmaking class, I had always wished our town would have something like this, some sort of production hub, or just some area you can go do editing, somewhere you can go do writing, somewhere you can learn acting, somewhere you can go see art house films again, hear talkbacks from the directors. And here it is, 2 blocks from my house. So I was like, yeah, I want in. So I used to email them a lot, like, hey, let me know if you want, and they called me out on it. And I had met with Tony and Shannon, the creative director. And they were like, yeah, well, they explained a lot of things to me, and I think the interview went very well. And Shannon says, well, don't worry if you don't hear back from us in another month or two. Just, we still got you on record here. I was like, all right. So November rolls around. I get a call from Shannon. I was like, all right, well, we're gonna be doing a soft opening for the. We're gonna having these holiday screenings. We're gonna show Elf and some Christmas movies, and we're having a session where we learn how to use the movie projectors. Mm-hmm. So I met them with a bunch of people, and we learned, it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. We had learned how to use the movie projectors over the phone, and then Shannon luckily put together this nice little printout, and he gave me a key and said that I can go in and kind of like learn it on my own. So actually I did. I went in and I spent a couple hours trying to figure out how to work these projectors. And I think from that moment, I was kind of hooked. Mm-hmm. I would show up a lot more, very involved. So somehow I just showed up a lot, I guess.
Yes. And how long have you been with the North Fork Arts Center? Has it been over a year?
Well, since last spring, it became a part-time management position.
Okay.
And I was still at Showtime. So so every day I was off from Showtime, I was actually at the Arts Center doing something. And my schedule at Showtime was great. It was like you worked, because it was like 12-hour shifts. And a lot of people think I was crazy for driving all the way to Hauppauge. Like, I can't believe you go that far for that long, But it was like you had weekends every other day. It was like you go in, you work 2 days, you have 2 days off. You have a 3-day weekend every other weekend. And if you manage your time off, you were able to get like a week off every month. It was great. Mm-hmm. So all my time off, I was going down to the North Fork Arts Center. Mm-hmm. So it was just 20, for months on end, up into probably from spring until last March. I was working every single day.
But now you're the theater manager
Yes.
at North Fork Arts Center. Because you mentioned the projectors, but what else? What does your job entail?
It could be anything. There's the day-to-day theater, the inventory, the payroll, the scheduling of the movies. But then there's just the odds and ends, and those are the things I love. Like you don't know what's going to come through the door. Yeah. Assisting with the educational classes that we have there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes even working with video occasionally, working the lights, working the microphone setup. It could be anything. Like, I think tomorrow I'm going to be meeting people who are going to be working on a sign. We need sign repairs, so it's, you never know what it's going to be sometimes. And it's being there and helping people too, coming in and, people want to know if our captioning devices are working. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot.
Yes. And you mentioned the projectors, or you're not using the old ones that are the big old projectors that are built in there. Are you using
they're in there. The old 35 millimeter. Yeah. We have 4 of them sitting in there right now.
Nice. And
they're all covered. And I think that we could probably, if we knew how to use them,
yes,
we could probably make one really cool functional one.
Yeah.
And then we have the old projectors that were there over 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we have one that's working, but we have 2 brand new projectors and 1 newish projector because they have like a 10-year lifespan. And after that, there's a lot of maintenance that goes involved with it.
Yeah. And even just from observing, you mentioned some of the programs. What are you most excited about for the Arts Center and the programs coming up?
It goes back to what I said before. You don't know what's going to come through that door. I'm excited for everything. It's like we had the Brooklyn Ballet come in twice. And, I've never been to a ballet, but now I'm like this huge fan. And, I love the people who come out, it's like family coming out again, So have blues music come in, which, I'm more of a metal guy, but I'll dig blues music when it comes, So I love the idea of like, you don't know what's coming through that door.
Yes. And also just to talk a little bit about Greenport, even up to today, because you came out in the 80s. What do you think of Greenport today and how it's obviously changed a lot?
It has changed a lot. We've always been a tourist destination. It grows bigger every year. Mm-hmm. And I think for the majority of the part, people are good, but it's like when people... you get the annoying tourists, I guess. It stands out, and it's kind of like, oh, they left Starbucks cups everywhere, and it's majority of the time the people are good who come out here, but it is a little frustrating dealing with that, and sometimes the loud Airbnb sometimes is a little tough, but that comes with it. We are a tourist town, so. Mm-hmm. I try not to get caught up in that too much. I try to enjoy my town because we have a lot of great things out here. If I just sit there and this town is not like it used to be, it's like, where am I going to get with that?
Yes.
Of course it's not the way it used to be. No towns are, you can't put towns in ice, you kind of got to roll with it,
Yes. And also are you working on other, independently from work at North Fork Arts Center, because you mentioned a new short film you have, but are you you have plans for other films or any other creative?
Well, that's something I need to think about because I don't know, time management. with my free time, I was able to go to a lot of film festivals, and I'm kind of at the tail end of film festival run. I have a couple coming up that I may not be able to attend because you can't go to all of them anyway because it can add up in costs. But, you know, I'm still writing creatively, and I still have projects that I want to do. Actually, in the middle of writing a script that takes place in the 80s, in the mid-80s.
Yes.
And is 80s themed. I mean, my version of the 80s, not everybody was dressed up in Ghostbusters costumes, spinning Rubik's Cubes, you know, so it's my version of the 80s, you know, here in Greenport. So I'm working on that, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I don't know. Am I going to rip off 3 chapters and make 3 short films? I don't know. You know? So yes, I'm still the creative bug is never going to die with me. But for the last 5 to 6 years, I was going with these short films, and that's definitely got to slow down a little bit, but I don't want to do away with that. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. There will be something. I just don't know what it is right now. It could be, hey, you know what I'm going to do? Next week I could come up with something, or next year I can come up with something, but there will be something, but I just don't know when.
Yes. And I wanted to ask the film world and your thoughts on movies and shows today and how that's changed even from the 80s. And obviously we have streaming services now, and there's a lot more, just like you said, there's more people have access to cameras, and streaming services like Netflix, they're kind of popping out a lot of shows that maybe it's kind of a hit or miss sometimes, but what do you think of the current state of movies and television? Because, well, I'll ask that so I don't go on.
No. You have a valid, and it's something I think about a lot now. I mean, I think people are still coming back to the movies. I feel like it's making a pretty good comeback. I wish streaming services would hold on to their movies a little, you know, like something could be in a theater for a month and then a week later it's out on streaming. I wish back in the old day it would take a year. You know, you would see it on HBO like 1 year, almost exactly, you know, on HBO. I wish that they would hold off on that for a little bit. There's a lot of streaming services, and in my theory, I think Netflix took the world by storm and everybody wanted to be Netflix, you know, and I was part of that. I worked at Showtime, and I was part of the Paramount Plus during that whole period, and it's still going on. Also, I feel like there is a need for independent films again. A lot of people are into the A24 films now, you know. I know we get a lot of superhero films. That's like kind of the big money maker, and I'm not against those. I still love a lot of those. You know, I love all the Spider-Man movies, the Batman movies. So I'm not anti any kind of movie. I just think we need to have something for all.
Yes, some more diversity, and not just what. I mean, I get it within a business model, what will bring in the most money, and obviously there's been a lot of superhero movies.
There always is. There's always those superhero movies.
I grew up more 90s, 2000s, but I always enjoyed even just, it's more of probably a nostalgia thing, but just the blockbuster and physical media within that regards. But I know that's kind of a dying thing as well, because everyone's like, well, you can say that people are interested in vinyl again, but in terms of VHS, DVDs, and Blu-rays, it's kind of everyone's doing streaming now.
I think people are digging VHS. It's sort of making a little bit of VHS as cruddy as it looks. It's making a little bit of a comeback. People dig the retro look.
Yeah. Do you still have some VHS?
Oh, I have tons of it, and I was going through a lot of it and digitizing it. And it's like I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, do I really want to digitize this? It's nothing bad, but it's just like embarrassing, teenager stuff. Like, oh my God, because I want to preserve it, but I'm just like, oh my God,
Yes.
They actually, it's funny you bring that up, because they actually do use a piece of me, a piece of video of me in the theater. If you have been there lately, they run a promo before it, and it's me, Mayor Kevin, and Oscar award-winning Chris Wedge in a video. And we always joke, it's the Jim video. Meanwhile, there's Chris and Kevin in it,
Yes.
But it's me talking about growing up in Greenport and us as metalheads hanging out in the alleyway. And there's actually like vintage footage of, of me in the IGA and stuff like that, which is kind of cool.
And was there a music scene at that time in Greenport, even for metal music, or was you had to go further west?
It's a funny thing because like as small of a town, because in high school we had two jocks, two preps, a couple metalheads, but as time went on, we had a large group of metalheads, and it's, some people look at they think metal, like, oh yeah, some guy with long hair thrashing his head, but there were so many subgenres of it. We weren't all one thing. I was more into Metallica, and I didn't dress like I just came off the Aerosmith tour. I dressed like the guys in Metallica with t-shirts and jeans, so it was, and it was almost, it kind of made your identity kind of, for a lot of us. So there was a little bit of a scene. And if we wanted to go to concerts, we'd all have to hop in a car and travel up to, I remember it was like Bayshore. We used to go to this club called Sundance, and you can go see Megadeth or Slayer there. And at one point, Guns N' Roses actually played there when they were sort of an unknown. Or we'd have to go to the city or Nassau Coliseum to see the bands that we wanted.
Yes. Now, and then also, do you get, because I know the North Fork Arts Center does a lot of educational programs, but do you get people asking you about getting involved in film and even what advice you might give young people that are looking to create films?
Well, I mean, I don't get anything personally. We do have filmmaking class, because I try to, we do have teachers come in, so I don't intervene with the curriculum that they have. I don't be like, you should do this. I would do that. That's kind of like crossing the line there,
Yeah.
So, if asked, I would say something, but like I said, I do respect the teachers, and that's a line you gotta take when they come in, because we do. This coming week, we actually have Nico Spiridakis is coming in and doing filmmaking classes. So,
but even if you were to get someone that's starting out in high school, what advice would you give someone that would want to go into the film industry today?
The advice I would go is just don't try. I mean, this is just me personally. Yeah. I don't try to make the next something. Don't make what comes from your heart. Make what's you. Make it more about you. Be a little selfish, because you're your voice, and you're kind of projecting what your opinions, and I think that's the best way to make a film. I don't know. I mean, Breaking Bad was amazing, but I'm not going to try to make something like Breaking Bad. Come up with something at least you think is original. I kind of tend to feel there is no original idea, but make it, if you're going to make a Western, which we've seen thousands of them, make it more you. Your version of it. As I was saying, my version of the 80s is not Ghostbusters costumes and Rubik's Cubes, Make it more about the way you see it.
Yes.
That's probably like the number one advice I would give to a kid or someone who asked.
Yes. And do you see, because you mentioned even growing up in the early 90s, there was a real strong independent movement within film at that time. Do you see that coming around again? I mean, you mentioned A24, but they even have gotten pretty big over the years too. Of course. And I think you can always, there's so much more entertainment to go through now, whether you can say it's good or bad, but there should be something for everyone. It's just, I think it is still hard today with so much information, and even just with social media and all the technology we have, it's a lot to absorb.
Yeah, I mean, what is the next thing that's going to be big? You can't ever predict that. I hope independent filmmaking makes some sort of comeback. I mean, who's to say that superhero movies were going to be as big and go on this long run that it did? Nobody would have thought that. I worry about stuff like the social media and the attention span it has for people. Like if you're watching TikTok videos, it's all right, next. Can you sit for a 2-hour movie?
Yeah.
I do. That does cross my mind from time to time.
Yeah. No, there are, I think people do binge watch a lot of TV shows in segments, but I think for the majority of movies, there are movies that are longer now, like superhero movies are 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I think it's very much in line with TikTok and the amount of information they have to put on the screen to keep people's attention. But I think there is a shorter attention span overall, that it might be harder for people in the future to sit through a 2-hour movie.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not
you can only hope for the best. That's all I got, man. It's like, I hope they don't do that.
Yeah. No,
but there are young people who do enjoy independent film classics.
Yes.
There are those out there. The majority, I don't know.
Yes. I'm kind of in the small. I still watch a bunch of older classic Hollywood and still have physical media and stuff, but
good. We need more of you.
yes. And I think I've also submitted to film festivals and done work like that and have gotten a lot of rejections too. So it's a common thing.
Oh, so you've done your own short films, or
I've done my own short.
Oh, interesting.
But more video art.
Okay. So
not too much of a narrative of what you might see in a gallery of some kind. But it's interesting being involved in that and trying to get your film shown somewhere. I wanted to ask something else about the North Fork Arts Center. Well, we talked about it. I think I talked about it with Tony Spiridakis, was the possibility down the line to have their own film festival here. But you probably can't talk about that too much. But I know he's something that's a possible future project down the line.
Yeah, that's definitely not... yeah. No, there hasn't been talks of it recently, but when he mentions it, it means it's definitely on the radar of something happening. I mean, this is a really awesome team that I work with right now, and between Liz, Natalie, Shannon, and Tony, and Art Concessions, it's such a great team, and they make things happen. We just knock them down one after the other. So I don't not see that happening. As for next month, next 2 months, not right now,
Yes. There's a lot of other things.
But really cool stuff is coming. And I do think to myself, like, what are the cool things we're going to have next year?
Yes.
We don't know, but I think it's going to be cool, and it's going to get cooler each time,
Yes. And I think just in terms of the North Fork and Greenport, what have you enjoyed most about living and working out here?
My life made a change. For 24 years, I was driving an hour, getting up at 5 a.m. Now I walk 2 blocks to go to work, to a place that I absolutely love. So I'm still going through a transition period right now that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And I'm working with people I enjoy to work with. Not that I have a lot of great friends at Showtime, but I'm with my new set of people, and I'm in my town, and I'm right down the street. It's unbelievable. I'm like, what did I do right here?
And even just looking towards the future, I like to ask people, what would you hope for the future of the North Fork and its community down the line?
I just say continue to what we're doing. We're on a good stride right now. We have multiple classes going on. Arts education, which is one of our biggest goals. Independent films, classic films, live talkbacks with amazing documentaries, with talkbacks with directors. I mean, we have next week, we have Ron Delsner coming in and talking about his film. I mean, it's just more stuff like that. More.
Yes. Was there any last minute things you'd like to discuss or say that we haven't touched on?
No, I feel like if you have anything else you want to say, I could sit here and talk all day with you, but to come up with something off the top of my head, I can't really figure something out right now.
No, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today and share your story and your work in the community now. It's really important. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. This is cool.
Well, I hope you enjoyed episode 199 with Jim Morrison. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.